Hey guys, it's Lisa with Are You My Cousin? And it's Thursday, so it's time for another weekly Facebook Live. And we're going to be talking all about genealogy and social history today. And while it is a weekly Facebook Live, I know I've missed a few with travel and the holidays, so I'm excited to be back and chatting with you guys. I've kind of missed being online at this time. I love to hear your comments and see what you guys are researching and getting the conversations going. So I am excited for you guys to be here. As you join, if you don't mind giving me a thumbs up or just kind of a little hello, that just lets me know that everything's working well and that you can see me and hear me just fine. So that's the exciting part. So we're going to talk about the upcoming things at Are You My Cousin? So I've got a lot of stuff getting ready to kind of up and coming. We've had a busy fall. We've had I had the launch of the photo identification ebook back at the end of October, I guess it was. We've had Black Friday sales, so we've had that come and going. If you are shopping for DNA sales, definitely there's a lot of them out there these days. There's a lot of DNA sales still going on through the end of December. So you can check. I have a bargains page on the website. You're welcome to check that to see what's current. I do my best to keep it current, but these things come fast sometimes, guys. So always double check the pricing before you purchase. Yay! So we've got people on here. Thanks so much. Glad to know that you guys can hear me okay. If you are watching this on the replay on YouTube, this is a replay of Facebook Live. And so just wanted to let you know that it's not live on YouTube, but it will be a replay there. Guys, I am in the middle of planning 2020. Can you believe it? It's coming up fast. So I'm actually in a planning phase, trying to kind of plan what types of topics you guys might enjoy hearing about on the website, what you might want to see videos about. And so if you guys think of that, feel free to drop anything that you might be interested in learning more about. You can put it in the comments here. I'll watch that. You can put it on the Facebook page. You can shoot me an email, anything like that. And that will help me to kind of plan forward, because I want to make sure that when I'm writing a blog post, whether I'm creating an ebook or a course, whatever, that it's something that you guys are interested in, because that's what I'm here for. I really want to take that overwhelm out of your genealogy research. And while I think I know what you might want to hear about, you might have some ideas that I would not even have considered before. I will tell you up front, full disclosure, I won't be writing about DNA very much. There are a lot of folks who are better at teaching that, I think, than I am. I understand it, but it's not an area that I tend to specialize in. It is super specialized, as you know. So we'll save those DNA questions. If you have them, you can ask them, and I can make sure you get to the right person for those answers. But think about if there's certain record sets that you're interested in hearing about, learning about. For instance, I know I did a post back in the fall on Archive Grid, which many of you had never heard about or had used. So if there are types of websites, databases like that you're interested in learning about how to use, or how to use a specific feature, let me know, because I'll be happy to delve into that and see what I can come up with for you guys to help you guys learn, because I guarantee it, if you have a question about it, somebody else does too. So there you have that. Let me check my things here. Oh, very exciting. Next week, watch your email on Monday. If you're watching the replay on this, I am recording this on December 5th, so some of this might be out of date if you're watching the replay on this. But for those of you who are watching it live, watch your emails next week, because I will be giving away a free 4-day pass to Roots Tech. I am a Roots Tech ambassador again this year, and so each ambassador has a pass to give away to someone. So watch for that coming up, the signups for that next week. If you have already purchased your pass to Roots Tech, great. I look forward to seeing you there. But go ahead and enter, because you can get it. You can get your registration fee reimbursed if you should win the pass. So it doesn't matter whether you've already registered or not. Go ahead and sign up for that. And that will be starting on I believe I put on the 9th, but watch your email for that. And it'll be on the Facebook page as well. So that'll be exciting. And last but not least, if you're Christmas shopping and you need some gift ideas for someone or for yourself, check out the gift guides on the website. I have a number of gift guides out there that can have a lot to do with genealogy. They're themed for stocking stuffers and books and DNA products. Feel free to check those out because that will give you some ideas. Actually, what you can really do, just send the link to your husband or your wife and tell them that's what they can get you for Christmas. So I've made your Christmas list for you already. All right, guys, I think folks are here. So let's talk about social history. Now, this is a topic that I have gotten very much interested in over the last 6 months or so, because I'm starting to recognize what understanding social history and our ancestors and genealogy, how they work together, and how that can start to help break down brick walls and help me find clues. So let's back up a bit. What is social history? Well, really, it's just the everyday lives of your ancestors. So it's what was happening at the time your ancestors were living. So if you have an ancestor I've often said you really need to get to know them on a very personal level. And this is a way of doing that. It's understanding, what did a Thursday look like for your ancestor? Were they farmers? And so did they have a routine day after day that every morning they got up and they had to milk the cows? Or, was it a seasonal routine? Was there, did the seasons run their lives? Did disasters, did that dictate whether they stayed in a location or whether they moved in a location? And so maybe it was an economic depression that came along and they were forced to move because of the economy. All of these things play into our ancestors, just like, quite honestly, it plays into our lives today. When you have a job opportunity, we move if that's needed. Well, our ancestors did the same thing. It just might have looked a little different based on the opportunities that were there. So understanding the daily life, the seasonal life, the culture of your ancestor will help you understand how they made decisions. Doesn't matter if they were rural farmers like mine, if they lived in the cities, if they lived in a large city like New York, if they lived in a smaller city, it doesn't matter. But what was happening in the world around them, because they did not live in a vacuum, that dictated how they made their decisions. And if you understand how they made decisions, you can start to understand maybe where they went, or it may give you clues as to understand, where did they come from? I'm stuck, I can't get further back. So those are the kinds of things that you can learn from social history. So it's a very important piece of genealogy. And I'm going to go ahead and put the post that I wrote on that earlier this week into the comments section, guys. If you haven't seen that, you can hop over and see that. And for those of you who are listening to the YouTube replay on that, I will have that, any links I talk about, I'll put them in the description down below the video, so you'll have that. Okay, so I want to talk about 2 or 3 types of oral history or types of social history that will help you with your research. And the first one I want to talk about would be, say, a local community history. So oftentimes you will find local histories written. They might be a full volume, it might be a smaller volume. A lot of times I will find them a nice synopsis of the local history in a heritage book. I see a lot of those in the research I do. They at one time were fairly popular, and in this area, North Carolina, the counties would have these. I think they were probably popular in a lot of other areas. It's just the ones in the South are the ones I've seen most of. They were county histories or county heritage books, and in the front, they would often give a nice synopsis of the development of the county or the town or whatever they were chronicling. And what I liked about that is it talked about migration patterns. It talked about why people came to a certain area. Maybe it was for the land. Maybe it was for factory jobs if you're looking more in the city type of setting. Maybe it was for religious freedom. Maybe they were following previous people who have gone out there. it could have been for anything, but it's those migration patterns, and they might tell us where the population in general came from before settling there. That's helpful because if you understand that a large part of your ancestors' community came from Pitt County, North Carolina, then that would be a clue to go back and see where any of can you make that connection back into that area? It's a clue. It's not a given that that's where your ancestor came from, but it gives you a jumping off point to go and look. So the histories are very important. There's local histories. What I try to do, and I don't know if you've had an opportunity to do this, when I do on-site research. So for instance, if I'm going to a county courthouse to do local research, I always try to make a stop at the local library, because often there's one, in my experience, there's been one fairly close to the courthouse when I've been researching. And I have been able to get small histories that I didn't even know to look for, quite honestly. I'm sure they're on WorldCat, but I didn't know where to look for them. And so I've been able to get some of those small histories. The other thing, when you go to the local library, and you can even do this by phone, call the local librarian, and they can help you track down local histories, or they can refer you to someone to talk to, because there's always a local historian somewhere in the town, right? And they can give you some ideas of people to talk to, or other resources, maybe even online, that you can look for. One of the nice things is that some of these local histories, particularly if they were written early, and that's really good, if they are out of copyright, you can find them for free on Google Books. That is something I use Google Books a lot for, those early county histories. And the reason is, if I'm researching my ancestors in the early 1800s and trying to figure out and understand the culture, their lives that they're living in those early 1800s, and I find a history book that was written in 1910, that's great. It's free. It's out of copyright. I can look at it online, and it's got great information in it. I don't need a 2019 history book when the 1910 is free, available, and just as accurate for the time period that I'm looking for. So there's my little soapbox on local libraries, guys. The librarians in the group can thank me. So that's something absolutely I try to do. You can also learn a little bit about, sometimes they'll actually give you some genealogies. Heritage books definitely will. Sometimes those smaller local history books will give you a little bit of genealogy and background as far as religious beliefs and those types of things as well. And they can be very helpful when you're trying to find any little piece to your ancestor that you possibly can. Okay, another thing would be to think, when it comes to social history, think about what life was like. So if you have an ancestor or a group of ancestors and they're moving west, as so many of us have ancestors, I actually don't have ancestors who moved west, but many of you guys do. As they're moving across the US, they did it by certain routes, and certain areas tended to go certain routes. So for instance, out of North Carolina, it was very common to head down through South Carolina, Georgia, and across the southern states that way. And a lot of times it was for land or for business purposes. But sometimes your ancestor left an area, and family lore is they were headed to Texas, but for some reason you can't find them in Texas. You never find them there. They don't ever seem to get there. Well, take a look at the migration route of others and look at the stopping points along the way. Maybe your guys stopped along the way because, well, life was hard in that wagon. And so they stopped in an area and they thought, wow, this looks pretty good. They've got land available or whatever they were looking for. I think I'm just going to stay here. I don't need to go all the way to Texas. I'm going to stay here. Or maybe, they're camping out over a while. They spend this short period of time in one of the regular stops along the migration route. Maybe they meet a woman meets a young man and they fall in love. And so she just stays, and that's where they go. Or maybe the young man goes with them. And so you can start to track them across that way. So think about what might have been happening to your ancestors along the way. Think about what could have happened. And by knowing the migration route and checking the points along the migration route, you might be able to get a track on your ancestors that way. So it's understanding that social history, understanding why they did what they did and how that influenced, how a wagon trip and when they're moving, how that impacted their decisions and what that might have been like for them and what kinds of stressors that might have caused them to go through. I know it's a little out there, guys, definitely out of the box for a lot of genealogy researchers, but it's well worth looking into. Another good, and this I want to just share with you 3 of the big ones that I really find helpful. So definitely local histories, and then understanding things like migration patterns, what the economy of an area, but then also oral histories. Okay, guys, I know a lot of us don't have oral histories in our family. We started genealogy rather late. Maybe there just weren't any of the older generation around to still gather that genealogy from. That's okay. There are a lot of projects that have been done out there previously and continue to go on. Excuse, I'm going to sneeze. Hang on one second. I think. Okay. I think the sneeze went away. Nothing like live TV, right? Live video. So oral history, there are a lot of projects out there that have gone out and gathered oral histories from certain ethnic groups, from certain religious groups, from just time periods, or just older generations in a community, because they want to document what was going on. They understand that they have knowledge that we're going to lose if we don't document. So your ancestors' oral history may not have been collected, but somebody in their community, maybe they were. Maybe your ancestor worked in a factory, maybe a certain type of factory. Well, if there's an oral history that was collected on another factory worker of the same time period, you can listen to that and you can start to understand what life was like for your ancestor. And you may pick up some tiny clues as to what's going on with your ancestor and how they made those decisions. Because ultimately, if you understand how your ancestor made decisions, if you understand the stressors in their lives, if you understand the reasons that they might have made certain decisions, whether it's who they married, whether it's where they moved to, what type of job they took, then you can start to understand what types of records that they might have created and where those records might be. So when it comes to finding things like oral histories or some of those local histories, lots of places to look for those. Certainly local libraries, oral histories. Actually, I would just Google literally oral histories, North Carolina, or oral histories, and then add in whatever specific area you're looking for, and you may find some projects that way. If you're a Southern researcher, and as you guys know, that's primarily where I research, you will find, I would recommend looking at it's called Documenting the South. It is a project that is over at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. It's also referred to as Doc South, and I'll put a link to that in the comments too. Has a lot of oral histories, has a lot of things across the Southern U.S., so you'll find a lot of great references and resources there. So I would absolutely recommend that. Another really good, I think, place to look would be, it's called gendisasters.com. Here, let me add those links in real quick for you here. So here is Documenting the South's homepage. Let me add that for you. Because I don't want to forget that later on. And if you guys think of any, absolutely pop them in there too, because I'd love to share them with other people. So if you think of any, go ahead and do that. Then there's also gendisasters.com, because sometimes natural disasters came up and really impacted where our ancestors lived and where they might have to move to if they've lost everything. So that's another good place to look, because it outlines, it chronicles newspaper articles about natural disasters or large fires, that kind of thing, things that might have impacted our ancestors. I think a lot of times we think of wars, that type of thing, but it could be hurricanes. It could be tornadoes may have wiped. It could have been a drought. It could have been the large drought that forced people to move. It could have been illness and health. That's another area that sometimes we don't necessarily think about when it comes to our ancestors, but health actually could have impacted where they went. And I use this example that I have Oh, something's got me kind of sneezy today. I use this example sometimes in the fact that I have my great-grandmother's brother. I lost him, literally. Couldn't figure out quite what had happened to him. And what I learned, it took me a while, but I was able to, this came through letters. These were old letters in the family. And finally, after reading the letters, I discovered him in Asheville, North Carolina. Well, now this family was out of South Central Virginia, but they were not a family of means. Okay, they were not travelers beyond seeing each other, seeing the neighbors, and seeing each other that way. I've never, ever had seen them in North Carolina for anything. And so I couldn't quite figure out, I was like, what is he doing in Asheville? And if you don't know, Asheville is in the mountains of North Carolina. It's a beautiful, beautiful area. Turns out in Asheville at that time period, they had the TB sanatorium. And ultimately he died of TB. And so it was his health led me to realize when I found him in Asheville, that's why he was there. And that's where it led me to look for his death record. So that's the type of history that, say, a social history could tell you. There was nothing in the records, nothing in the census record that would tell me. But when I found him there, I had to look at the area. I had to look at why did people go to Asheville? Yes, it's beautiful. Yes, it's a big tourist place. But this wasn't a family that traveled for tours. So I had to think beyond what else besides the beautiful mountains and the beautiful views, what else was there that would have drawn him there? So that's important. Okay, thank you so much. I'm glad you think this is important. I think, as you can tell, social history is so important because sometimes the traditional records really only take us so far. And then we have to start thinking, what else could have been happening that would impact where our ancestor ended up and what they did and how they did things. So yes, I'm a big fan, as you can tell, of social history, of really, again, outside of the box thinking. And this truly is outside of the box sometimes when it comes to research. If we can get outside of our traditional research box of census records in the states and wills and really think a little bit broader, it will help you to start to make a little progress on brick walls. I won't guarantee that it's going to break down all your brick walls, but I think it can help you make progress towards your brick walls so that you can at least start finding a clue and have a way to move forward. Because I think that's oftentimes the hard part when we have tough ancestors to research is we just don't have a way forward. We don't have a path to even pursue. So sometimes having that path to pursue is important. Now, if you research out the social history or if you of an area, so you go through that history of the area and you still don't come up with anything, I always tell people, no research is bad research. No research is really negative. It just means you didn't get what you were looking for then, but save that research, because if it's an area where you had a lot of ancestors, it may come in handy further down the line. And whether it's that particular ancestor, whether it's another ancestor you start to look at, whether it's collateral ancestors, hang on to that research. Don't think, oh, great, I wasted a lot of time. You didn't waste it at all. It's important research to do, and you never know quite when it will come back in to help you. And once you have done this, big tip, guys, once you have sought out the social history, once you've learned the history of the area, the customs, whatever you might have learned for your ancestor, go back to the very beginning of your research on that ancestor and start reading through it again and start maybe reanalyze those earlier records, your earlier research, because you will have a different perspective than you did when you began that research. So if you've been researching someone for several years, how you think about them now is very different than how your perspective when you first started. So go back with a new perspective and check and read your notes. I think that's going to benefit you more than you will ever realize. It certainly has benefited me to go back to the beginning and go back through with a new perspective. Okay, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. So if you have any questions, go ahead and pop them in the comments section below. Again, don't forget, if you were watching this live, watch emails and Facebook next week, the week of December 9th. And for the opening up of the free Roots Pass, for the opening of the contest to win the free 4-day Roots Tech Pass for Roots Tech. For those of you, if you don't know, Roots Tech will be held the end of February in 2020 in Salt Lake City. If you've already purchased your pass, you can still absolutely apply to sign up to win, because you can get your money simply just reimbursed. So it's whether you have or haven't, you're good to go. Definitely check out the website. I've got a lot more information on using social history in your genealogy research. You can read the full post there. You can, and again, if you guys think of something that you're interested in learning, if there's specific topics or databases you are interested in having me talk about or write about, teach about, please feel free to, as I said, you can put them in the comment section here. Even after our Facebook Live is over, you can put them in the Facebook group, the Facebook page. You can even email me, and that will give me an idea of what you guys might be interested in learning about. Okay, guys, that is all I have for today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will be back next Thursday for another Facebook Live. I'm going to be able to do several in a row. We will not have Facebook Live the week of Christmas, because I think you, like me, will probably be celebrating with your family that week. And so, but we will have one every week in December except for that one. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye, guys.